What's going on, guys? I'm YST and welcome to one of our Raid Shadow Legends video. And today we're going to be taking a deep dive into one of my favorite epics for the Hydra clan boss in Ostrox Boneglaive from the Undead Hordes faction. Now I don't know what it is, but since its release I don't really see too many people speaking about this champion, and I really feel like for players progressing through the Hydra that he can make a massive impact to your teams, especially if you're lacking on options for some block buffs. Because let's be real, we need 3 teams of 6, and trying to fit this key component into 3 of those teams can be really hard, especially if you don't get lucky with your pools. So yeah, I guess let's just deep dive into what he's bringing to the table here. But first and foremost, I just wanted to see what you guys feel in game, or where you feel like he shines. So we've got 94 ratings at Hydra, being the main one here. Faction Wars, I agree, can be really good for those enemies such as the Valkyries that's causing you problems. And just universally good in many of these waves that are just buff heavy, right? And you want to stop them from placing them. So he enables this through the A2. So with the Spinal Surge, it's an AoE attack, and if 3 or fewer enemies are alive, has a 100% chance once booked of placing a block buffs debuff on each enemy for 2 turns. Now what makes him a standout is, if 4 or more enemies are alive, also has a 100% chance of placing a block buffs debuff on each enemy for 3 turns. Now on a 3-turn cooldown, that's pretty much full uptime, which is massive for stuff like the Hydra boss for consistency. And also reliability, right? And then if we head into this A3, it's removing of 1 random debuff from all allies and also placing an increased accuracy buff on them for 2 turns. So whether that be the provoke from the Head of Wrath or some poisons that slip through, the heal reduction from the A1 of Head of Decay, these are all little effects that Ostrox is really just going to help take away from your allies, and the increased accuracy helping you reach those thresholds, because as you go into the higher difficulties, the requirements are actually very, very high. If we take a quick look at hellhades.com stages tool, which I do recommend for anyone that just wants to see the accuracy check for any encounters in the game and just speeds, etc. You can see here on the Nightmare difficulty, the resistance of someone like Head of Wrath, over 300. Head of Suffering here, like 360 is kind of what you want to be aiming for. We've got 315 resistance on Head of Decay. So being able to have that increased accuracy to help you place your debuffs from your allies is just going to be massive. But it's worth noting it is on a 4-turn cooldown, so you want enough speed in your build to cycle this round if you're relying on it, or just implementing some masteries and gear sets to help you cycle that. On the A1, it's a single target attack with a 100% chance once booked of transferring a random debuff from himself to a target, which just has a bit of self-sustain, I guess, send some debuffs back, like a weaken for example. And also healing the ally with the lowest HP by 10% of their max HP. So if they're just falling short, just keeping them sustained throughout the fight, pretty much. In terms of the passive, with the Skeletal Mirror, whenever an enemy attempts to place a debuff on this champion, has a chance of reflecting it back to the attacker. I guess the main thing where I've seen it shine the most is, let's just say the Head of Wrath attempts to place the provoke on this champion. Although you're not going to provoke back the Head of Wrath, just being able to just take it off this champion, so you can therefore lead into the A3 and cleanse that provoke of everybody else. I just felt like it does slip in and just help out your team throughout the run for consistency. But not a massive chance, right? 20% isn't massive, but it's a nice little backup just to keep you in the race. In terms of his aura, he does has accuracy by 40, just helping you reach those thresholds once again if you're falling short. So in terms of the builds that I recommend, I personally love to go with Hex on this champion, just to bring an extra bit of utility, especially if you're lacking multiple Hex champions, because if we just head into the website here, there's actually not a massive amount of Hex champions in the game. Many players will, of course, get Mithrala from the Hydra boss. But outside of that, if you haven't had some good luck with your RNG on shards, you may just be looking for another champion to apply the Hex. And I feel like with an AoE attack, he could just help out in just applying that debuff for your team, and maybe paired with another champion that has a Hex, and they can go back and forth to just apply that debuff. Also, you could opt in for Provoke as a backup provoker. Let's just say you get resisted once in a while with the 3% chance, or maybe their skills don't come back round on time and you just want that extra chance by using that A1 and A2. Provoke could be a nice way to go on this champion as well. But of course, if you're just looking for only to provoke, you're just trying to reach those accuracy thresholds, something like triple perception could be the way to go as well, just to make sure that you're reaching those accuracies and getting that extra speed so you can outlap your enemies. If you are relying on the A3, which is on a 4-turn cooldown, you could go for something like Relentless or Reflex just to get back round to that. But I'd personally opt in for something like Hex, Provoke, or Perception, depending on the type of team and what utility you're trying to bring to the table. In terms of stat priorities, I've actually built him for damage in the past, and he just doesn't put out the damage. He's just a well-rounded support option. So for me, I would just recommend building into sustain, making sure that he's not dropping down so he doesn't die, right? So that said, I've gone defense percent here on the gauntlets. I've gone HP percent here on the chest plate with some nice speed and accuracy ascension. We've gone speed on the boots with some accuracy here as well. Accuracy on that banner. We've gone defense here on the amulet, as well as attack here on the ring, mainly for the nice HP percent substat, and pretty much just a ring I had on when I was testing out the damage builds. And priority stats in your substats, you're just looking for speed and accuracy and some sustain, just for extra HP and defense. Overall stats on my build, I've got 50,000 HP, above 3,000 defense, 250 speed to ensure that he's cycling that A2 as much as possible, especially in a team that you're just dropping down these Hydra heads frequently because you want to be able to reapply that block buffs once they come back from their decapitation. 100% crit rate, if you can get to it, it could be nice. Bit of extra damage, I guess, if you're mid-maxing. Crit damage just came from substats here, and enough accuracy to apply my debuffs to those high resistance targets against the Hydra. Bit of an overkill here, especially with that increased accuracy, but because he has to open with it, we don't want to be relying on the increased accuracy, especially on Ostrox in that opening phase. But yeah, like I said, just go to the stages tool and make sure that you've got enough accuracy in your build for the difficulty that you're facing. So one other thing that I wanted to mention here is, in terms of the block buffs options in the game, there's not a ton from the epic rarity. You may have seen in the thumbnail that I mentioned Umbral Enchantress, who has a very similar skill, which we're going to break down her ability soon. Outside of that, we've got not 100% chances with people like Illicinia or Phenax. I would say number one in the game from the epics is Ugo, applying both block buffs and decreased defense with a lot of utility. But if she's slotted into one of your teams and you're looking for an alternative, and you don't have some of these legendaries, I would personally go for Ostrox over Umbral if you have the luxury of both of these champions. And why do I say that? So if we go into Umbral Enchantress, she does have the exact same ability on the A2, 100% chance to apply that block buffs on a 3-turn duration. And if that's all you're looking for and you've already built an Umbral, then happy days, you could just opt in for her. But let's just say you don't have any of these champions built and you're looking for who is the best one for my Hydra team. I would go into Ostrox personally because the provoke of the Umbral's A3 actually locks her out of her active skills for 5 turns, which, you know, if you can't cycle round through those 5 turns fast enough, you're then going to wear out on your block buffs and then you can get into a bad situation like Wrath getting increased attack, the reflective damage goes up, the poison cloud to your weak hitting, and you could just get into a really bad rotation. So yeah, for me personally, I feel like with the increased accuracy, the mini cleanses, the heals of the A1, the transferring of debuffs and the block buffs, I feel like from Hydra specific, I feel like Ostrox takes it personally. But let me know in the comment section below which champion you'd rather have in your Hydra team. But of course, Umbral is going to stand out more from a control standpoint in other areas of the game, because I feel like with the stone skin buff, you can kind of counter one turn of this in the arena, make sure you're locking out those enemies, as well as just some utility in faction wars. I'd say both worth investing in, but Ostrox for me just comes out on top as the second best block buffs champion in the game for the Hydra clan boss. In regards to the blessings here, I've gone with Cruelty. Another great option would be in the Harmony section, being Neutralize, because it has a chance of placing debuffs on weak hits when attacking enemies under Poison Cloud. So let's just say you get unlucky with your placements, you might get a 3% resisted and the Poison Cloud goes up, or perhaps Ostrox gets devoured throughout the run. You know, just be able to have that chance to place that debuff through Poison Cloud is a nice backup, I guess, for progression. But if you're not banking on that and you find yourself always having the block buffs active, then I'd probably just go with Cruelty, personally. Mastery wise here, we've gone the offense tree heading down to the War Master. And then the support tree, I'm heading down to the lasting gifts to have a better duration on that increased accuracy being on a 4-turn cooldown. We're going to have the cycle of magic to proc that chance to also get back to that A3. And then we're heading down to the Master Hexer to have that chance to extend the duration of our debuffs for stuff like the Head of Suffering, who can have that extra turn. Now, in terms of some other things that you could consider would be the Arcane Celerity, having the chance to increase the turn meter by 10% when a debuff cast by this champion is removed or expires, or perhaps the Rapid Response of his increased accuracy for another 30% chance to increase turn meter by 10% when a buff cast by this champion is removed or expires. And through that, it will just help you cycle round to that A3 more consistently if that's something that you're banking on for your champions. So one other thing that I did want to mention in regards to the block buffs is you may be thinking, because it's if 4 or more enemies are alive, you get the 3-turn duration. How does this interact with if you decapitate a head? Well, the game still classes it as 4 enemies in front of you, so regardless if enemies are decapitated or alive, you're always going to have that 3-turn duration in Hydra specific. But of course, in other areas, if there's less enemies, you'll just get that 2-turn duration, which is definitely what we want from a Hydra standpoint, right? And one last thing I did want to mention in regards to scarcity value is the increased accuracy buff. We spoke about how limited block buffs is from 100% chance from the epic rarity. Increased accuracy is even limited further because we've got Isla, right? Pretty decent here. We've got Pistilis, who's not the greatest champion in the game. Claude is nice for increased speed and increased accuracy, as well as both the Rancid. But, he fits into a scarce pool of champions from the epics for that utility if you're lacking it in your team. So I guess with that out of the way, let's just head into a Hydra run and see him in action. And there's not much to show, he's a very simple but effective champion. He's applying block buffs, he's applying increased accuracy, and that's pretty much it. Just get that debuff out as much as possible, and just paying attention to your run as well. At times you may want to save it from when heads are respawning back from their decapitation. So what kind of team have I put together here? Well, I've got Thor in the mix for decreased speed, and it's for one primary reason. Now, my one is geared for Ultra Nightmare without increased accuracy, but let's just say you're a player that's heavily invested into the damage part of his build and struggling with a hybrid one for his decreased speed. This is where that increased accuracy could come in and help your damage dealer / debuffer reach the thresholds they need for these Hydra encounters. We've then got Decreased Defense and Weaken coming out from Lydia, who you can obtain from Faction Wars. Inquisitor Shamail for countering the Head of Decay when he spawns in. Dilgo, bit of a fun option. This dude, I probably don't recommend to put him in your Hydra team. But that said, he's been a lot of fun because I'm just prepping for a future champion guide. But an AoE decreased accuracy for me for progression, one of my favorite debuffs in the game. And it's the reason why I use Pharaoh the Barkhorn. Because it could just stop you from getting those provokes from Head of Decay, stop Mischief from stealing your buffs, or the heal reduction from Head of Decay, right? All of these debuffs, decreased accuracy could just drop down their stats, and you just resist everything pretty much in the right build and stats. And also just a bit of decreased defense and decreased speed for some fun. But once again, like I mentioned with Bambus 4-Leaf, I didn't want to clash, and that's where my decreased accuracy was coming from before. I was like, oh, let's just put Dilgo in there for fun. We then got Ostrox for block buffs to counter all of the Hydra mechanics, and then Sigmund the High Shield being a previous fusion for decrease attack, provoke, and some sustain for the team. So let's just head into it. We're not going to do the entire run, just showcase what he's bringing to the table. So right here, we have got the block buffs going out, and you can see we got a 4-turn duration on the Poison Cloud heads. Let's just free regroup. We never got it on the left one. 3% resisted. Raid, sort it out. So decreased defense and weaken, block buffs out on everybody now. And you can see here with this champion, Head of Suffering, so he's going to place an extra turn on his A3 ability. And this is where the 3-turn duration is massive compared to a 2-turn, because he's going to take down one of the turn durations, and he's also going to have one left after the extra turn, which is huge. There's the decreased accuracy. Boom, and now we're resisting the steal of the Head of Mischief. So increased accuracy is massive, or decreased, sorry. Now the increased accuracy is coming through, we're just going to take them down with Thor. Can we get another decreased accuracy out? Boom, look at this dude. It's not a Dilgo showcase, but it's just fun to see it. Do you see there? Still got a 1 turn duration on that block buffs even after that extra turn mechanic, which is massive. And then now with a bit of increased speed, we should be able to cycle around again. We just have to take down his Head of Mischief here. Drop down that turn meter. Lead back in again. Block buffs. All right, guys, I need you to see this here. So you can see block buffs was on a 3 turn. It just dropped down to a 2 turn because he kind of went past a turn there. But it does work even on decapitation for that 3 turn duration for Ostrox Boneglaive, which is huge. And as you see, reapplied the 4 turn durations and the 3 turn with those Mastery procs. We're then going to reapply the Provoke on Head of Decay, making sure he's not cleansing the debuffs. And we've just got a real fun synergy here, right? Covering many of the key roles. In terms of damage, like you see, it's not massive. On decapitation bonus, we only did like less than 100,000 there with all offensive debuffs active. Oh, we didn't get the decreased accuracy on the Head of Blight here. That's unfortunate. All the poisons coming through. But that's where decreased accuracy really comes in clutch as well, from someone like a Dilgo. Oh, you got it on now. Well, hey. Let's get a bit of a strengthen on for some sustain. Who's coming in now? Oh, we got the Head of Wrath. We need to get that block buffs out again. And this is where saving your abilities can be really helpful here. So we're cleansing off some of those poisons, right? You can see where this mini cleanse is coming in action from Ostrox. Can really help you out. I feel like the best one he counters is like the heal reduction, because that can really mess you up. All right, so here, can we get it out? Yes, we did. Just in time here. Provoke going right back out again before the cleanse. And boom, never had decreased accuracy, unfortunately. This is where Bambus is massive as well. You know, just placing that debuff. Ooh, I was hoping you can send back the Provoke there, even though you can't against the boss, but there we go. See, that resisted from the A1 of the heal reduction on my Dilgo. I guess one thing we're really lacking in this team, I just put it together briefly so we're not using some busted champions. It's just the kind of heal element. There's not any heals in the comp. You know, getting some leech out there will be massive in this comp as well. Decrease accuracy. Let's see if we can get some resisted here. Block buffs going out again. Perfect. So what I mean, guys, like 3 turn cooldown, 3 turn duration, mini cleanses, increase accuracy, transferring debuffs, heals for your lowest HP ally. Like this dude is coming in and just putting in the work for maybe not your best Hydra team out there because you may have an Ugo in your main one or just a better option. But for your second or third Hydra team, he's a really, really nice mid to early game progression block buffs champion for your Hydra teams, you know? And you can just fit into a variety of comps. No specific one. Literally, just a very simple champion that just slots in. So a few days ago, I did actually put him into my main Nightmare Hydra team, and of course, it never reached the same levels as with my Pharaoh the Barkhorn, who's enhancing the damage and stuff with the stats being a legendary. But he did what I wanted him to do, right? He put the block buffs out, he did some cleanses, and, you know, we did reach the turn count in a team like this with 500 million damage. Granted, a top tier team. But this was in actually a raw damage build without the Hex, and he pumped out 8 million. So from seeing from this, I knew that he's just not going to put in the work as a DPS option, just a kind of bruiser for some additional millions. In regards to the Hex build, he went back and forth with Lydia, also being in a Hex build, and he got 25 million of the damage here, and 48 million with Lydia. Of course, that just came down to the RNG of who placed the Hex first, pretty much. But you can see it was effective. We got an extra 30 million damage from the previous team where only Lydia was in the Hex, and having 2 of them bumped me up by 30 million. So it is effective having some multiple champions in Hex here from a support standpoint. So with the Hydra out of the way, I guess let's just speak about some other areas that you can use Ostrox to help out in your team. So it could be in Doom Tower waves. Let's just say you're facing these buff heavy champions and you just want to block their buffs, right? Stopping them from placing all of these effects like shields, ally protection, continuous heals, and all of that stuff. Like even in some secret rooms that he pops up, or in the Cursed City of Sintranos, like he'll just slot into some of these teams and just help you out, right? Especially with the faction limitations on some of the stages. But one thing that I did kind of want to show was the faction wars and how effective it can be. It's actually not open today, but I did screen record it from when the faction was open. So as we come into wave 1 here, you can see that we've got the Black Knight who actually triggers that unkillable buff. I know that is so annoying, especially if you've got someone like a Physics in the team, right? You're like, oh my gosh, Physics, can you just stop dropping down this turn meter so we can take him out? You know, once again, helping you out with cleansing some debuffs, increase accuracy if you need it, and mainly just stopping the enemies from placing stuff like counterattacks from Martyr, the unkillable buffs, or if you're facing someone like, I don't know, Man-Eaters, whatever that may be. Like, it's just a useful debuff, right? If you're just lacking options in the specific factions that he's in. So right here, we're just kind of saving the cooldowns, pretty much. I'm just going to show you the round 2 as well with the Valkyries. So because we've saved it, we're now going to apply block buffs on a long duration. And none of these enemies are pretty much going to do anything. Warcaster can't place his block damage. Valkyrie can't place shields and counterattacks. You know, Errol can't self-buff. And it just makes the run so much smoother if you've got these effects in your team. But yeah, guys, I guess with that all out of the way, I feel like that is going to be all for today's video. A short and sweet one. You know, he's just a block buffs champion. And if that's what you're searching for, and you're lacking in terms of options, definitely consider him. He's Void, so neutral affinity, which is massive. Brings some useful stuff, and even if he gets replaced in some of your Hydra teams down the line as you get further in the game, he's still going to have some use in stuff like the Cursed City of Sintranos, Secret Rooms, and some faction-limited content. So have an amazing rest of your day, guys. Subscribe to see some more champion guides here on the channel very soon, and I'll see you all on a video soon. Peace.